Wow, was that an earthquake swarm at Bardabunga last night, guys? And thanks so much for informing me about that. I saw it. I was just so knocked out and tired that I thought the volcano has to wait for me with an eruption, and it did. So there was no eruption, but the earthquake swarm, wow. And this is not something new, so something's building up there. So we have to talk about this. There's a new press release from the Icelandic Meteorological Office today, but there's also news about what's going on with the volcano underneath Svartsengi. So stay with me in this video, guys. Very, very interesting. So let's start with Bardabunga. Strong earthquake swarm, says the Icelandic Met Office at Bardabunga. Largest earthquake had a magnitude as large as 5.1, and approximately 130 earthquakes were recorded since last morning in Iceland. 130 earthquakes, that's a lot. And this is, we have to put this in perspective. This is the most significant earthquake swarm since the 2014 Holuhraun eruption happened. So that says something, guys, because this 2014 eruption was not something minor. This was basically a big eruption, the largest volcanic eruption in Iceland for over 300 years. So everyone alive on Iceland had never seen anything like this. In the summer of 2014, to be precise, on August 29th, an eruption began in Iceland. A 1.8 kilometer long fissure opened north of the Vatnajoekull ice cap. So this is this Vatnajoekull area that's covered in ice and glaciers. And that large lava field created by this eruption was named Holuhraun, which translates to hollow lava or porous lava. And that outbreak was related to coincident caldera subsidence in the Bardabunga central volcano. It begins to subside if the magma comes out. Before that, it fills up, the land is rising. So this is a unique and rare event that scientists all over the world had never, ever monitored in detail before. So that's why this one is such a significant eruption. And I mean, Bardabunga, you see it on the map, it's one of Iceland's most prolific volcanoes, and it lures under a few hundred meters of thick glacier ice. And we know what happens if magma mixes with water or ice. So this is basically on top of the center of the Icelandic mantle plume. So it's basically, you can literally say this is where fire and ice meet. So why is this eruption so significant? Well, can we see some parallels? So for a time frame of 2 weeks before the eruption started, a seismic swarm was migrating from Bardabunga to the Holuhraun eruption site that is a little bit further away from Bardabunga, 45 kilometers northeast, indicating a dike was propagating underground from the Bardabunga central volcano. So it was originating from there, but it was erupting somewhere else. And we see this in Svartsengi right now. There's a magma chamber underneath Svartsengi. That's where all the eruptions are made. That's where all the magma's coming from that flows out as lava at the eruption site in the Sudnuka crater series. But it's not erupting right on top of that magma chamber, but this is possible that it one day eventually it will, if the crust there gets too brittle by this continuous expansion and then emptying out, subsidence, expansion, emptying out. So many times here. And we've got the Blue Lagoon and the important Svartsengi power plant on top. That's why we will hear an update about that as well. But let's get back a little bit to that eruption that was coming from underneath of Bardabunga. So this eruption was long. It lasted for almost 6 months, and it ended on February 27th, only 1 day less, by the way, than the Fagradalsfjall 2021 eruption. So Holuhraun eruption turned out to be the largest effusive eruption in Iceland since 1783, 1784, when the Laki eruption was happening there. This was a massive one. So the Holuhraun eruption has produced 1.44 cubic kilometers of lava that is covering 84 square kilometers. So huge area. And the only thing that is good about this is that that volcano has a remote location in the central highland of Iceland. So neither this enormous lava flow nor the large amount of sulfuric gases that it spewed out at that time caused any serious hazards. And guys, just on a side note, historians say that the Laki eruption has added or has caused or was part of the cause of the French Revolution. Because of the ashes that it did spew out, they landed in Europe on the fields, causing food shortages. Stuff wasn't growing, and then people were hungry and they were getting angry. So wow, this comes from Iceland. So at 8 in the morning, 5.1, and then 17 earthquakes measured magnitude 3 or higher at Bardabunga. And I've reported about Bardabunga quite a few times, so the seismic activity has increased in this area over the recent month. And it was this current swarm was highly intense. That's what the Met Office says, until 9 a.m. this morning. And then the activity began to decrease. And we see also the graphs that they have released about this. We'll talk about them in more detail. So the aviation color for Bardabunga has been raised to yellow because if there is an eruption, that could cause problems. So this volcano, guys, is unusually large, and there's several possible scenarios for future eruptions or developments in this area. So from this earthquake swarm, 17 magnitude 3 or higher, they say at least 2 were magnitude 4 or above, but we will have to wait until they have really sorted that out. The analysis of these events, that's what they say, is still ongoing. And although the earthquake activity has decreased at 9 a.m. Icelandic time, the earthquakes are still being recorded in this area, and they say it's too early to determine if that swarm is subsiding. And here is the latest. This is the latest data, what's happening right now with the earthquakes in Iceland and with the earthquakes in that area. But let's talk about the images and the graphs that we see here that have been produced by the Icelandic Meteorological Office's earthquake monitoring systems that they have in place, thankfully. I wish that they would have something in place like this in Ethiopia at the Dauphin and Fentale volcano, where there's a massive land rise happening right now. Just recently discovered that in just a few weeks was rising 1.3 meters over 4-point-something feet. 4.3 feet. So check out that video. I'll put it in the end screen. I just released it. So let's look at the map in the upper left corner. There you see all the earthquakes, and of course the larger the circle, the larger the earthquake, and it shows you the location of the earthquakes, and the black circle is indicating the Bardabunga caldera outline. So on the edges of that caldera, this is where most of the earthquakes happened. And then we're looking at the earthquakes magnitudes. They have shown us this graph here with these red lines and the red dots. So if there's darker bars, they say it represents reviewed events, so basically confirmed earthquake magnitudes, and the lighter bars represent unreviewed data, so they can't 100% confirm yet that this was the final magnitude. And then we have like a curve, a graph here that shows the cumulative number of earthquakes. So there you can see that curve, it's continuously going up. And then this is interesting, we see these blue bars here. That graph shows us the hourly earthquake count. So you see it's been subsiding, but then it's been getting up a little bit, right? But the most massive event was basically happening 3 hours, but still lasting over 5 hours. And overall, what we need to know with Bardabunga has been preparing for an eruption basically since the last eruption ended. So there is increased land rise and magma accumulation happening in this area since 2015. And again, what we're seeing right now is the most significant activity in Bardabunga since the Holuhraun eruption. And with the last event, we already said that this is the most significant. So it's setting the bar higher. So they say that this observed seismicity that they see there is consistent with increased pressure by the magma accumulation underneath Bardabunga. So probably the growing magma chamber that is filling up is causing these seismic events. I mean, we know at Svartsengi, it's all pretty short-lived. It keeps rising over a few weeks or months, and then boof, the earthquakes form, and then boof, eruption. So it seems Bardabunga is a little bit slower with everything taking more time and preparation, but then, wow, can that thing do something? So the earthquake activity and the pressure has been increasing steadily over the last few months, gradually. And in 2024 already, this is what the Icelandic Met Office thinks that's notable, 4 earthquakes measuring magnitude 5 or higher have been recorded already. I've reported about this, right, guys? You know me on the Pulse with Silky. We have to report about this. And in addition, this geodetic deformation data suggests an increased rate of inflation at the volcano. And if you want to know, if you're interested, how they calculate this land rise, this inflation, I have explained it in my last video about Ethiopia, about the volcanoes there. It's interesting, I find. If you want to know about that, check out the video in the end screen, my latest Ethiopian update. So what are the scenarios? What could happen at Bardabunga? Well, they have multiple scenarios since this is such a large area. So the Met Office says they will continue, of course, to closely monitor this activity, but they say for them right now, it is difficult to predict what it will do. Many possibilities, and they can't, at this moment, they don't know how it will develop. They say Bardabunga is unique and it's an unusually large volcanic system. And they only have one eruption to work with, to collect some experience. This is the difference to Svartsengi. They have quite a few. And not only is this volcanic system so large, it's also partially covered by ice, by a glacier. So many things could happen. So what they're saying is that, of course, during the 2015 eruption, they were able to do hazard assessments and contingency planning, and that they say this will prove valuable should further volcanic activity occur at Bardabunga, and I think it will. So from that Bardabunga caldera that you see on that picture, that black circle, that is the caldera. We could see magma intrusion, we could see another dike formation where it travels from the magma chamber to an eruption site. So we could see eruptions outside of the Bardabunga caldera, as it has happened with the Holuhraun eruption. And then also there was the Yelp eruption in 1996. But alternatively, an eruption could even occur within the caldera itself. Should an eruption take place beneath the glacier, beneath this thick layer of ice, it may trigger explosive ash emissions if water mixes with magma. And of course, glacial outburst floods because the glacier is melting. So that's the one scenario, eruption inside the glacier. But if there's an eruption outside the glacier, it will likely result in a big lava flow event, not that explosive. What does that mean? That they raised the aviation color code at Bardabunga to yellow. Basically, that indicates that there is a heightened activity above normal levels. So precaution. Aviation industry should be on alert. And there was a small glacial flood happening. By the way, at Grímsvatn. That's here on the map. And let's talk about our friend Svartsengi that is getting ready for another eruption. And it feels like, oh, the other one just stopped and they said, yeah, this is going to be next year. We already have next year, and wow, is January racing, guys. We already have January 15th. That is crazy. How did that happen? I think we were just before Christmas, but maybe for me, time did fly so much because I was on the road with Apollo and we're having these appointments with the vets and all that. So maybe I lost my feeling for time, but I'm just so surprised. Can it really be the middle of January already? This is absolutely crazy. So we see the land rise at Svartsengi continuously. So the magma accumulation in that magma chamber underneath Svartsengi is continuing and preparing for the next eruption. It's not stopping. This is not over. And that land rise, that ground uplift, and that means the filling of that magma chamber is steady. So it is happening with a similar rate over the last few weeks. It's not slowing down. And they think by the end of January or early February, the likelihood of an eruption starts to increase. But remember, the last eruption, I predicted it, started way earlier than they thought. They thought it's going to be a Christmas eruption, but then it was a November eruption. So model calculations that they have right now indicate that approximately 12 million cubic meters of magma will have accumulated beneath Svartsengi by that time. And models are based on estimated, it's just an estimate, you can measure this, magma inflow rates, but minor changes in the inflow could of course impact that estimate to like an earlier date or a later date. Seismic activity right now at Svartsengi remains low, so it's not ready to erupt yet. Magma is not going on its way. The pressure there is not big enough that it will cause an earthquake swarm. Same in the last weeks. That's why the hazard map that they're showing us today remains unchanged. Of course, there's an orange level in zone 3. That's where we've had all these eruptions, but everything else is yellow at the moment. So there is nothing that is of concern right now. They think that the magma inflow rate into that magma chamber is estimated at just over 3 cubic meters per second. That is similar to the rate that they observed before the last eruption. They say magma accumulation will reach 12 million cubic meters by late January and approximately 13.5 cubic million meters by the first week of February. And that's why likelihood for a magma intrusion or an eruption along the Suknurka crater row starts to increase late January. So only in a week or so, something could happen. And then they have made an announcement about the lava fields from the last eruption, which were quite extensive, right? Threatening the power plant and especially the Blue Lagoon, destroying the Blue Lagoon parking lot. So the experts, especially the Icelandic Meteorological Office's hazard assessment of that lava carpet has been updated, and they say there's no changes. They say it is hazardous to hikers. Do not run around on that fresh lava field. That is basically, if you look at the hazard map here, that is zone 3, zone 5, zone 1, but also zone 6 a little bit. So 6 is considered a little bit lower, but still stay out of that. That was my update, guys. I hope you're all doing well. I said it to my members 2 days ago. I'm on the road again. Had another appointment with Apollo today, and that's been stressful because I was basically driving it in one piece to get there. But yeah, guys, I'll keep you updated very, very soon. Thanks for all your prayers for Apollo, and thanks for all your best wishes, for your support on my buymeacoffee.com website, buying us all the coffees to help with Apollo's vet bills, and for the supers you're giving us here on YouTube. It helps so much, guys. You have absolutely no idea. So Apollo and I, we say thank you, thank you, thank you. And I see you in the next video, but check out the new Ethiopia update, and there you'll also learn about how they do this, measuring the land rise. So I see you in the next one. Bye bye, guys.